Welcome back to EUphoria episode 11. We are available on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and SoundCloud. Dracos has taken a little bit of time off, so it will be Vedi joining us today to bring us through everything.
And I'm happy to be here alongside none other than Miky and Upset from Fnatic, where we talk a little bit about MVP, All-Pro, who they think is performing well, and some reflections on their spring split.
Yeah, the lads were a little bit cheeky.
A little bit.
We'll see exactly what they have to say as we get on into it.
Thank you so much, Upset and Miky, for joining us after your final set of games this weekend. How do you guys feel after finishing the regular split?
Feeling pretty good. I mean, right now we have first place. I think top 2 is probably locked. I think no one else can reach 7 wins except us and KC. So pretty happy with the last weekend.
Yeah, I think the games were pretty decent as well. We weren't struggling as much as we sometimes are. So that was nice.
As we sometimes are. Do you want to expand a little bit,
Well, we did
Miky?
lose 2 series, one against SK, one against MKOI, which I don't think are the greatest teams, but you know.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Upset, any thoughts on the losses from the split?
I mean, the one versus SK feels really surreal, but I think there was just like, I think people were just not feeling so well on that day or something like that, because I can't explain it otherwise.
Okay.
And was Koi, I mean, Lich Bane, Schmidt Bane. You know, it is what it is.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Sometimes you just forget to buy the item that wanted the Nexus. No, I mean, obviously that series was pretty close. I think, obviously it all came down to that moment, but we definitely made mistakes before that too. But yeah, I still feel like we are the better team, but they showed some strength, I think, Koi also today.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Were you surprised by MKOI, or was it just more of a, you didn't feel you lived up to your standards?
I mean, it was legit like 50 HP on the Nexus and the conversation would look really different, right? But I think they're a decent team. Like, I would say they're definitely a top 4 team in EU, so you can't like underestimate them. SK, on the other hand, is doing pretty poorly, so that loss was pretty different. But I can see Koi like being a strong team on a day, for sure.
Yeah.
So when we think back to winter, we had the opportunity to talk to Miky and Grabs, and something we spoke a lot about in that session was the different environment that you now find yourself in, working with new teammates, the Fnatic, I don't want to say curse, but the reality is that you were the ones that kept stopping Fnatic from winning anything. So I am curious now that you both have kind of had plenty of time to integrate into the Fnatic lineup, you've now played on the team for a long time. How do you feel the roster has developed and grown, and where do you feel like the roster's at right now?
I mean, I think we've grown a bit this split, at least, in terms of how we approach the games. I think mostly around dragons and stuff. Like, even today, when I think it was like 3rd Drake, it was still 1 minute left. Enemy team was already grouping as 5 edits, but we just went top lane, got some free gold, and then they had to go defense, and then we went for Drake and just took it. So
Don't leak our strats.
yeah.
What are you doing?
But it was just like,
Pitching macro now.
Yeah.
Is this going to be on Patreon or something? Nicky's macro course.
we're just a bit smarter, yeah. And a little bit more patient than we otherwise were in winter.
Yeah, I think the main difference is staff coming into the staff. I think he made us smarter, for sure. I think he is pretty good about like what waves to play on, when not to play, how to trade objectives more efficiently, setting up the map for that, planned beforehand. I think that was the biggest growth we had. Otherwise, I mean, winter wasn't terrible, right? Like, we were first in regular and then close series versus KC. I think we're adapting better to Fearless as well. I think our drafts were worse in winter than they are now.
I love that I hear these little giggles from both of you on each of your answers. Like, there's a deeper layer here.
I mean, it's like in BAG, we basically benched our drafting coach, and now Grab is doing the drafts now, but I mean, it's still Grab, so it's kind of crazy, honestly.
But he does sometimes pick the wrong side. So.
Yeah. Grabs has some weird stuff with red side. I don't know. It's like his favorite side. But
I remember the last time we Grabs on, he did his own draft, and I think you were the one who was like, why do you want Xerath mid if you can have any mid laner?
I think he was actually drafting for fun. But something that is on stage, so it's not good. So,
yeah. I mean, actually, it's funny because in Madrid, me and Grabs had like, after we played versus G2 and we won, we had like both the same draft of like discussing it and having an argument, but both at the same time had like the same dream.
Wow, he's really in your head then. Huh?
I mean, like same for me for him, I guess.
I guess that's true. Yeah,
Goes both ways.
Just putting the voice recorder under his pillow. You will pick me the champion.
For sure, yeah.
Damn. All right, so good to hear. And how are the vibes in general in Fnatic? Obviously, winning helps, but we've always considered Fnatic a pretty emotional team. And I think the sentiment shared from fans especially definitely feel frustrated that Fnatic of old was one that was very driven by emotion, and kind of how they felt on the day would determine their success. So naturally, people are interested in how is the atmosphere in the team right now, how are the players doing, and how is everything inside Fnatic?
You want to go
emotional?
I'm not very emotional, but I can see, I think maybe like just culturally speaking, I think Spanish people are maybe a bit more like passionate.
Oh, that's good.
That's a good word. So I would say Oscar and Ivan are like a lot based on like confidence and how they feel, and they can have the very best games if they feel like they are in their best form, and they can also have like maybe a little bit worse games if they are not feeling it. So I would say we are like a little bit emotional. I think Marek and Miky, me are like a little bit more like, I don't know, not stable, but like
Clinical.
less passionate maybe. Less passionate. So I would say it's more top jungle, I think. The other three, I think, are not that affected in either way, I would say.
Because I was going to ask, because last time we had Miky and Grabs on, Grabs was kind of saying, look, one of the things we struggle with is we get a concept, we nail it down for the first 4 weeks, and then it all kind of slips apart. Do you find that it's been easier in like, is it a change of culture to keep these ideas flowing, that's why you think the split has been better? Or do you think it's kind of Duffman coming in and being able to say, hey, we're going to nail down these 3 concepts, and then how do you get them to stay in place?
Well, I think like when Duff came in, he just introduced concepts and actually gave them some names. I think before people would just like want to describe what we want to do in the game, but now we just say like a word and then everyone is aware of what it's supposed to happen, I guess. So I think that helped for one, and then I guess just repeating it and holding people accountable when they don't do what they're supposed to do, which is kind of the process that we're at right now. Yeah.
It sounds very fair. So reflecting on this weekend, you guys played 2 series. Any thoughts that immediately stuck out? That your Heretic series today overall felt pretty clean, but the BDS series, we were talking briefly about it, was a little bit scary in game 1. So what do you guys think about your performance this weekend?
I mean, today's match, I don't know, I feel like we were just cooking them on bot lane, like it was crazy. Like it was, I don't know, like I feel like I mean, we win with lane often, but today it was like special, I think, how much we won bot lane. Other than that, I don't know.
It was rough, yeah.
But BDS, I think BDS is actually pretty decent at early game. I think also their drafts are usually decent, except the knock Orianna. I'm not sure.
Understand.
I mean, they killed you like 3 times back to back, right? And then
1v5, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it really was that. That's what we were saying in the cast as well.
No, for sure, yeah. I think like BDS is good in the early game, but I think we scrimped them maybe like 6 times, 7 times through winter, and I think we lost maybe like 2 or 3 games out of like 35, 36. And it's not because we stomped them every game in the early game, but the Nexus just explodes somehow every time. I don't know why. It was same in the last playoffs. Like they were actually kind of smurfing in the early game, like some Skarner hiding in a bush and slamming our Zyra and stuff. But in the end, our Nexus just survives and theirs explodes every time we play them. So I'm not sure exactly.
It like you obviously have a very long career in the LEC, and I mean, one of the things that we've talked a lot about, especially regarding you this split, is just been the constant aggression. And today in the interview, you talked about how you don't like to follow bad engages, but you feel like that the team just keeps giving you good engages to follow up on. And that reminded me of what happened in game 1 of BDS, where I remember the Baron fight had happened. Razork, it was either Miky or Razork engages on the top tri-brush, like 1v4, and then your Kai'Sa flies past, you immediately dive into the AD carry. And I was like, this is not, like, this is the upset I've come to expect this split, but this is very different to the upset that I'm used to from previous teams and different versions of upset.
Yeah.
So I'd love to know your mindset, because it does feel like that you are so committed to just kind of skill checking people right now, which obviously a lot of people absolutely love watching.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of things go into that. Like, first of all, I mean, like, no offense, but I think the way Bo was playing tank champs and engaging was not it. Like, he's really insane on all the carry champs and like very, very good at that. But like the engages he would do were usually really fucking bad. And I don't see any point of going in and like just dying to follow up on an engage, like if a player makes a bad decision and I think the decision looks like very sus, like I'm not gonna just go in and die too, just to like make it like, okay, I'm not a KDA player, I died as well. I don't think there's much point to it, right? But also it is definitely about confidence in a way, but it's also about gold leads. Like I feel really good in this team. I feel like I'm often in really good positions to actually do the damage. Like if you're ahead in a game, it's much easier to like go in and fight people. But if you're behind, if you go in, it's gonna look a lot worse, right? It's also meta stuff always is important too, right? Like I think I've been always pretty good at Kai'Sa and Zeri and Ezreal and these mobile champs, Kalista, for that meta. So I think that also helps me shine a bit more. I think when you play like Aphelios and Jinx, it's much more about the way your team sets you up because you don't have much mobility. So it's really a lot about like what targets you're allowed to hit based on your team's gameplay. But yeah, there's a lot of excuses for me. I have a lot more.
I actually wanted to push you a little bit on the Kai'Sa because you're kind of one of the few AD carry players that is still bringing it out. And my understanding for a lot of it was, hey, she worked when there was lane swaps because she couldn't get bullied as much in lane. And then we kind of saw lane swaps disappearing, but you're still willing to bring her out in a lot of situations. And you look fantastic on her, right? So what is it that you have a different understanding of the champion when it comes to how to play the lane that you feel? Or is it you just feel like you have so much more agency in team fights that's what you're relying on? It doesn't matter how the laning phase goes.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I have a really good support, right, who plays like all the champs really well and a lot of them. So that makes laning much easier already. If you can lane well with the champ in itself, like AD carry that gets a huge shield and that can teleport, sounds really OP, right? So the only problem is usually the lane. But I feel pretty good about laning with her in most matchups. Maybe that's the biggest difference, I guess, that maybe other people feel like they don't get away with it as much if they just pick her. So for me, I think that's maybe the main reason. And then, I feel really confident in team fights. I think we have people with really good alpha engages like Ivan and I mean, all three of our tank players, right, are very good.
Tank players.
We have 3 tank players and 2 carries. So the tank players are very good at that. So it just feels natural to play.
I mean, he's not wrong. I haven't seen a Lulu or a Yumi from you yet this
What about Nico?
She's
not a tank.
I mean,
she's the same
we
thing.
didn't play much MF, right? So the Lulu is
Yeah,
not coming out right now.
we're waiting for the playoffs.
That's the game 5.
That crucial game 5, You're talking about evolving your fearless drafts. We're excited to see. So we've heard a lot about you. Want to hear a little bit about the rest of the league. Your rivals, G2, you guys beat them last week. That must have felt pretty good for you, Miky. But also I'd love to know what your guys' thoughts are on G2 in the context of the league right now and like how strong you think they are and your experience of like maybe some of their struggles where they're at.
I mean, I think...
Don't leak anything.
Your regular season is done, right?
Don't tell them what they're doing poor. They might fix it.
But they're just horrible all around. They can't fix it. No, I think, they just seem quite disconnected in the way they play.
Right.
I think this week they did a bit better, but I think Vitality was also completely griefing. But yeah, I mean, I think individually they just kind of played worse on stage in Madrid. So I want to see if that's going to be a similar trend when they go again next week. And what do you think?
So is that okay, Mr. Lawyer?
That's okay, yeah. I mean...
No comment.
I mean, like Miky said, I think individually there's like a little bit of underperformance because obviously we expect more from these players, right? They have been very, very good for a very long time and they should be given that respect for a reason. So I think it's like a little bit individual form based, maybe some strategic choices in some compositions.
Some areas.
But yeah, in some areas could be improved upon. But otherwise, I think they are doing just fine, honestly. After the 2-0 yesterday, with how the league is shaping up, I'm not really concerned that they won't make playoffs at this point. I think even top 4 is probably a likely possibility with how I rate the team strength-wise. So we will see, I guess.
Yeah, because they've got 2 matches next week versus
SK and KC. Yeah. The KC one is definitely going to be tough. But yeah, if they get to SK, they get 5. But yeah, I think I do think KC slump early game still rough, but they just seem to come alive in the big game, which is always difficult.
Yeah, help us understand KC a little bit more, because KC is a weird one for me, where I feel like their early game is something that hasn't been super stellar, but they have become that team that you just kind of trust to find ways to win games. But you guys obviously played against them very early on in the split. So how much do you rate the team? Because right now they're your direct rivals, and kind of how do you evaluate KC?
I think the top 2, I would say right now, it's pretty fair to say. I would say the early game probably got hurt a bit by the lane swap. I think when Kana is in his best form, he's really, really dangerous. But he's still playing really well, but not as good as in the playoffs, I would say, last split. I think their bot lane, I like how Taga finds angles in this team, and I think Kalist has very good mechanics, but the laning phase understanding is not quite there, I would say. They're decent, but I think if Kana is not playing really, really good his lane, and bot lane is not doing super good in the laning phase too, the early games can be a little bit weaker than before, because last split was also lane swaps, right?
Yeah.
And that's, even if they wouldn't lane swap every game, it just gives the draft a lot more depth, I would say. Or you can't really draft in a way where you pick a matchup that would be, for example, Nico would probably not show up much in lane swap games because it's not really excelling as much. Also, the other champs on bot lane, you could maybe get away with a bit more or swap out earlier. So I think that probably made the early game a little bit worse as well. But yeah, they're still a very good team, I think, especially team fighting is a big strength of them.
For sure.
Their macros, fine. I think just individually they have very good mechanics.
Yeah, I agree.
Voyeur summarized everything for you.
I mean, there's a lot of games that they played the split that I feel like it was just illegal that they actually got away with the win. I don't know, there was this Ivern MF game against Koi that was completely illegal. Then they had one more, I think.
Heretics, they were 5k, 6k down, 3 dragons down.
So in general, when you look at the whole split, I think they were not actually playing that well, but I think their ceiling is high enough that they should still be a top 3, top 2 team. Yeah, I'm probably right now top 2, I would say as well. But I would say they're probably going to be much better coming into playoffs.
Yeah, I'm very much aligned on that idea where it's clear that the skill is there, but I don't think they've consistently shown it really this split. So I think that's a nice summary. The thing that's scary about EU though is it feels like when it comes to the best of 5s in the playoffs, that's where we do see teams really step up. And so I think of a team like Heretics, for example, who I think have surprised many. A lot of we on the broadcast credit a lot of their success to Sheo and how he's found a lot of great creative angles in the team fights. And obviously, you guys kind of had a very easy time today.
Yeah.
Did you have a specific approach in mind when playing against Heretics and thinking about some of their strengths?
I mean, I think the lanes were just way too weak. How they played the matchups, it was just no resistance. Completely cooked.
Topsy got solo killed.
I mean, I'm talking about. I mean, just bot lane, right?
Yeah. You can say it how it is.
Yeah, I mean, bot lane just got cooked today. It happens. I was impressed by them, honestly. The split, I think they showed great growth. I think it also speaks a bit about teams like Vitality BDS. I would expect them to be much stronger on paper than Heretics, let's say. But obviously, Heretics has been doing things pretty well. I think their matchup against us is just not great. I think they rely a lot on their jungle being able to set himself up for success, I would say, and get to these points. But if his lanes are under a lot of pressure, then either he needs to sacrifice himself or his lanes are gonna get demolished. I don't know. Cooked, yeah. So he needs to make a choice, and today he chose himself. It felt like I didn't see him much, and then it's not like jungle is gonna do much if the game state is like that. So Still props to them. I think the matchup was just bad for us today, but overall they did a pretty impressive job getting to 4 wins already, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
They're in a really, really good spot. I did hear you mention Vitality and BDS kind of underperforming expectation-wise.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you guys have played against Nisqy a bunch now. We've had a lot of super entertaining games, I'm going to say, watching from Nisqy. How do you guys rate his interaction with Vitality?
I mean, I think they were the only bot lane to kill us 2v2.
Yes, they were, yeah.
But you know the scene from Lord of the Rings where it's like I just had this come to mind, I don't know why.
Yeah.
Where it's like the Witch King.
Yeah.
Like that's basically I'm the Witch King, Miky's my Nazgul. And then it's like no support can kill us 2v2. Yeah. And then Nisqy's our win and he's like, I'm not a support. And then the Q flash us.
I think we're both just like very shocked. Yeah, never going to 2v2 by Alistar Saver.
That is one of the best comparisons I've ever heard. That's
No, but honestly, the amount of games they've ran it down, Kazi and Nisqy, is a bit shocking. I think you should expect a bit more from players of this caliber. I mean, it's tough, right? Because Nisqy just role swapped. And I think Kazi is always either he does amazing or he completely runs it from what I've seen. More often than not, he does really well. But when he runs it, he really does. And I feel like their top laner is really, really talented. I'm really impressed. But he kind of has the same thing. Either he completely smurfs or he completely runs it.
Yeah.
So that's just I guess there are too many unlucky days maybe. Because I would think they could beat the Team Heretics. I think they got 2-0'd by them in a really weird series where the games were unbelievably winnable. I think the mid-jungle is to me, they look pretty consistent. I think they're they've shown good growth. I think Shayak plays better than I thought he would.
Yeah.
I think he has improved a lot and shows good games. So, and BDS, I mean, they were top 3 for 2 years before that, right? And then they made the roster changes proactively, it felt like, to change up the dynamic, but the new dynamic just makes them very, very inconsistent. So I think also they have good carries. I think Ice is playing pretty good.
Nuke has been popping
off
Nuke
the last couple
of weeks as well, yeah.
So, I would think these teams should beat out the Heretics on the paper, but on the Rift, it's a different story.
Don't play with the paper.
Yeah.
Damn. So it feels like there's a lot of volatility in our league, isn't there?
Yeah, I think it's for BDS, it just feels like patience, where they can get these leads, and then it's kind of we're all going to all in at this next dragon, whether the pieces of paper are in position or not.
Yeah.
And then, I think for Vitality, it's weird because I've seen some dragon fights and stuff where they'll do some cute stuff hey, we have an Alistar that's going to hex flash out of the bush and set up for this great combo. And I was really impressed with Triax Talia. I can't remember what game he had last weekend, where I was oh crap, this actually looks really, really good. But it just feels like it's, as you say, so inconsistent with Vitality. And then going 0-3 in Rakan in the first few minutes for Nisqy, it just feels like you're always coming out from a deficit. So it just gets very, very tough.
Hilly would never. Sometimes he would. It depends.
Yeah. I think it's hard. I do think there's a lot of inconsistency, but I think we're getting to a point now where, because it was major growth, right? Or major changes for a lot of these teams as well. So I think you're kind of getting to the point where we're now starting to see that work come to fruition, even with yourselves. It feels like we're now starting to get to a point where that consistency is kind of coming into play, for at least some of our rosters anyway.
Yeah, I hope so. Now, we've talked a little bit about a bunch of the teams, but I'm going to put you all under the spot a bit, because this week, All-Pro and MVP voting is going to come out for spring. Teams are going to be asked, the usual folks are going to be asked, and I wanted to put you guys on the spot a little bit today to ask you about, we'll focus on bot lane All-Pro, because you guys have played against every bot lane, I imagine, extensively throughout your many weeks of scrims. And I would like you, if you're confident enough, to vote yourselves top All-Pro if you feel so inclined. You don't have to hold anything back here. Honestly, I've loved how candid Upset has been about most of the bot lanes that he's talked about today. So while...
I mean, Miky, just let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Do you feel like right now we have the most skill in all the bot lanes in Europe?
By far.
Why do I feel like they practiced that?
We just watched the clip at some point, like a month ago.
Okay, well then I'll start with Dagda. So if you could all-pro, if you're voting top 3, let's start with 80 carries. Let's start 80 carries.
Yeah, it's hard to put them 1, 2, and 3 because I think there is like. Well, guess who's going number 4? No, but I think it's like I think your self upset is probably number 1. I think it's the consistency is there.
If Khalid was in the answer,
but it's also like say for G2, right? I think Hans Sama has been the most consistent performing player on that squad, and I think he's been doing a lot of work with not getting a lot as well. So I think that's where I'm like, okay, so it's kind of hard to say how does Hans Sama fit into things. So I think I'm probably putting Hans Sama a second in that because I think he has been performing incredibly well, even though he hasn't got a lot of resources. But then going into third, then that becomes a little bit more difficult, right? Because I think you're kind of looking at Ice more than likely, as I think he's had a couple of good weeks over recently. But that's where I think Kalist and Targamas haven't had the best of laning phases. But it probably is Kalist going above it. But I think if you look at laning phase, I don't think Targamas and Kalist have really shown. But I think in his mid to late game, Kalist has been fantastic, right? And also there's probably a bit of recency bias because Ice had a fantastic weekend.
And of course, like we haven't seen KC now this weekend, and we will get to see them.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
that'll probably influence some things as well.
Yeah, so I think it's kind of hard to say, but I do think it's probably in my head it's probably upset and then Hans/Kalist in there with Ice trailing somewhere behind, but. I'm interested to get your opinion first, actually, Becky, since we know what these guys are going to say.
Yeah, I mean, my vote was going to be upset Kalist, and then I had a tough one with Ice versus Hans, personally. Yeah. Like, I agree with you that I think Hans has been very good throughout the split, but Ice has really impressed me with what he's been able to do considering the environment that he's in. Yeah, because I feel like that... I mean, I just don't think that his support has had the same impact compared to what he had before with Labrov. But I still find that Ice is able to... I mean, his game against you, the story, in my opinion, was which AD carry could carry harder. When he was on his Jhin, it felt like he was completely popping off. I mean, there was that part, near the Baron where you tried to get in range, then he had the movement speed, and then he hit you with the fourth shot, and then...
I was nearly... I was asking, did he get a pentagon?
Yeah, so sad. I was like, did he get a penta?
Because my team never gives me a penta.
That's right. So
about to claim it.
So yeah, he's definitely up there for me. But it's for me, comfortable top 2 would be Upset and then Kalist. So how are you rating them, Miky? And you can be honest. Pretend Upset's not here.
I mean. I think I would put Hans number 1 up until he flashed into my hook, and then
that changed everything. That changed the butterfly effect.
So then put him number 2 currently. Number 3, I don't know. I think probably between Ice and Kalist, and then obviously number 1. Fuck it.
Super. I forgot Super.
Oh yeah. I forgot. But I think I think it's been quite clear, at least for the number 1 spot. But yeah, I think the rest is a bit more all around.
Just before we move on, can I just ask, like, how do you weight the different parts of the game? Like, are you weighting more the laning phase?
The laning
for
phase
that?
is a big one for
is
me.
A big one
I think that's the easiest way to judge a player, because that's like how that's what you can practice almost every single game, right? You can practice lane phase. For AD carries as well, I guess how they play team fights is important, and support as well if they get good engages and stuff. But I feel like a lot of that is more random, I guess. Okay. Or there's a lot of variance in that regard. But I think laning phase, especially laning against people, you can kind of get a feel for how good they are.
Something Jack Spectre said about AD carries was that he feels that laning phase is very much driven by supports, and that the more items you get, the more like unlocked an AD carry becomes. Because the later the game goes, the more skill you have access to in a way, just because you get more attack speed, more damage, pretty much more cooldown, everything you could want. And so you're kind of progressively unlocking everything you're allowed to do as an AD carry. And I was curious, Upset, if that also something that weighs on your mind in your experience as AD.
I think he's... I really like Jack Spectre. But I think it's a cope. Like, it's bot lane is... very 50-50, I think, in laning phase as well. like the support won't carry like a really bad AD carry and be strong lane. Like you really need to be on the same page, and hopefully you're on the page that is good, where you're playing well, because both people need to play well on bot lane. It's not like the support is gonna carry a completely boosted guy. Like, of course, AD carry maybe has like less agency in some matchups, let's say, right? To like if your support is really good at finding Qs on Nautilus or something, it can really swing the lane. But in the end, also if the enemy AD carry is really good, maybe he won't get hit. So I think it's up to everyone in the bot lane to play well. So I wouldn't really agree with that part. When it comes to rating a player, for me, it's everything. Laning phase, champion pool, decision making, how consistent you play. Team fighting obviously is a huge one. Skirmishing, how good you control minion waves, I think, is also a really big thing that makes a good AD carry, or just a good laner in general.
So how would you rate your top 3?
Well, I would put myself number 1 just for the games to split. I think me and Miky were the strongest bot lane, so it's just fair to put myself number 1 in this way. I would put Ice second, I think. Just because I think his life is a bit harder, but he's still performing very well. I mean, it's very close between Kalista and Ice. I think either one could definitely take it. The thing with Hans, I think he's really good, for sure, like amazing player. I think it definitely helps a lot though when he's on his champions. I think like he's definitely the best player on some champs in the league. Like I think he's the best Varus, I would say, and the best Raven. I think when he's on his like really good champs where he can really dictate how he wants to play, I think he's still easily top 3. But just for the performance this split with G2 struggling and them dropping a lot of series, and then seeing Ice how he plays in the games they're losing, I would put Ice over Hans, and then Ice Kalist really close. So I guess BDS played all their matches, or they have one more?
BDS is finished, yeah.
So I guess I would have to see the last matches of Kalist, right? If Kalist has a really good weekend, I would put Kalist second. For Hans will be hard. If he also has a really good weekend, I see him going into top 3, but I think these 4 are playing very well right now,
Yeah, that's very fair. That's super cool. Thanks for sharing your insight on that. So rather than go through all pro of every lane, because I don't think it's super productive, I would like to talk a little bit about MVP of the split. Now, MVP is a super contentious topic just because different people rate MVPs as different things. Some people weigh their value to a team. Some people just think that the best player should be MVP. And across our history, we've kind of had different circumstances where different players, depending on their impact or their individual performance, has been MVP. I want to throw a name into the ring. So when I think about value, Sheo is someone that I think is in the conversation in terms of value. Do I think that he's the best jungler in the league? I think there's definitely a debate there. But I think for what the level, something you said earlier, the on-paper level of Heretics versus the impact that he's demonstrated this split seems MVP worthy for me. Not to say that obviously he's the only MVP candidate, but he's someone that I'm like thinking of as a potential.
Yeah, I think it comes back to that conversation of, is it the most valuable player on a team or is it the best player in the league?
Yeah.
Because I think if it is most valuable person on that team, I think it is Sheo. Because I feel like, as you say, if you slot Sheo out and put essentially any other jungler in there, I don't know if Heretics are able to perform. Like if I put 113, Bukada, I'm just reading through Malrang, Linsis, like
but
teams.
What if you put Yike or Rasok or...
Yeah.
And that's the question, right?
Yeah, that is the question, right?
Exactly.
And we don't actually know, but I think Sheo has shown that he has leveled this team up dramatically, right? And I think it's also not only in the gameplay, but I think it's also very clear from looking at what is now missing on BDS from what Heretics now have, that a huge amount of that shot calling and how he kind of rallies the team around objectives does come from Sheo. And I think that's at least from an outside perspective, I think that's the part for me that has really impressed me about Sheo, is just like, not only does he feel like he's able to control and dictate a lot of the early game for Heretics when they need it, but also kind of grab people by the scruff of the neck and get them into the positions they're supposed to be at a big objective or whatever that might look like.
Yeah, for me, he's not really a candidate because I think you MVP of the whole league should be also somebody that will be in the end of the last weekend of LEC, and I just don't see
So
Heretics.
best player.
Yeah, I mean, can you be the most valuable player in the whole league if your team? I mean, I guess you could be, right? But for me, I guess I judge it a little bit differently. Like you said, I'm more on the best player camp a little bit. I think that makes more sense for me. I think the impact he has on his team is really good, but I do think the team would probably be better if they had Yike or Rasok or Elioya. I think these players could fit a similar role, like a veteran role, leading their team. Like, look, the impact Yike had, for example, on KC. I think with like younger players and stuff, I think they did an amazing job leading their team. So it's hard for me to put Geo, but I can definitely see your guys' point, right?
No, it's completely valid, and that's why I like having the conversation, because I think that it's a really difficult topic. So I'd love to know, when we think about MVP players, who immediately springs to mind. You don't have to lock in on one, and feel free to say yourself as well. Like, I think it's great to hear all perspectives.
Yeah, for me.
Yeah,
For me.
it's you.
No, it's upset.
Okay.
But also, for me, it's more valuable that someone is consistently playing very well, like kind of the same as the best player, because I think having like standout games for me only counts if it's actually against the good teams.
That's
I
very
think
fair.
in Shio's case, it was not really the case. I feel like
True.
I think against the top teams, it didn't really make much of a difference, I would say. So I feel like he's in the same spot as Jankos was when Jankos was playing there. He was like their standout player, but basically it was just like a very good player on a bad team, kind of.
Right.
So it stands out, right, compared to his teammates. But I wouldn't say that makes him MVP worthy.
It's a valid argument.
So yeah, for me, it matters the consistency and how clutch you are in the games. If you can actually win the games by yourself and while being consistent at it, so you don't solo lose the games as well in that same split, I guess.
So if it wasn't upset, are there the other players that you would think of that would be MVP worthy?
Miky.
That guy
Wait a second.
I mean, we can look at the best teams in the league and then look at their best players. I think for Koi, for me, Elioya is the engine of that team. I think Alvaro is really good too, but I couldn't really imagine this team without Elioya leading them, to be honest. So
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
for Koi, it would be Elioya, in my opinion. For KC, they have a lot of great individual performers. I mean, it's hard to if Miky would put me as the MVP, then it's hard to put Kalist if he, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's hard.
Yeah, I wouldn't do
I
it.
mean, so my gut
So probably, like, for me, Vladi has been playing really good.
The most consistent.
I think, for me, it's Vladi. Last winter, was there even MVP voting and stuff? Also?
So there was finals MVP voting in winter.
Okay.
So the reason why we didn't have for winter is because I thought that the split was too short. 3 weeks of regular season is what was voting on. And people weren't a fan of that last year. So I decided to cut it this year. But now the regular season is 7 weeks, best of threes.
Makes sense, yeah.
I thought it would be better to bring it back for this. So we've got MVP for spring and MVP for summer.
Is it regular season?
Yeah, just regular season.
Ooh.
Oh.
And then there will be...
Might win something.
And then there will be a finals MVP for each final. So then there'll be like 2 MVPs basically. So the one who ultimately wins the split, someone on the team will ultimately get an MVP, and then also one for the regular season based on the significant length of time which guys are playing.
That's great. No, I mean I thought Yike, Kana, Vladi, they all could have gotten MVP last split. I think Kalist also playing very well. But for this split, I would give it to Vladi. I think he showed wide variety of champions, pretty consistent, really shows up in team fights. Lane, good. Have a little bit of work.
But that kind of feels like
fine.
a lot of KC this split. So that's where I'm like,
that's true.
So that's where I kind of like Kana and Vladi are kind of in my mind for being up there. But I do think it's just yourself. I think upset you've been like, I think it's been really good. I think it's also it's the laning phase, which is obviously both of you working really well together. But then in team fights as well, I think it's been a real step up performance where it always feels like even if a team fight is starting to go slightly sideways, I know I have to look at the match history now because my brain is farting, but it was his first game against BDS where there was that team fight you were talking about earlier, open that tri-brush and you just shotgun yourself into the back line. You pick off ice, flash over the wall, and then you still actually win the fight out against ice afterwards. And I was like, this is what I want from an AD carry. And it's these moments where you can like have that killer instinct, take over the fight, grab the bull by the horns and win the game. And while I think Vladi can do it, it's just not having that consistency in the early game that kind of pips it. I'd say Kana, like there's been Kana's Nar game yesterday, I think it was it yesterday or what am I remembering? Against Rogue anyway, where he had like some insane team fights where he just 1v9s the whole team fight on the Nar, gets this big 4-man wallop, and I'm like, all right, but that's the team fight one, right?
Yeah.
I think that's those moments where you can just completely change the outcome of a game are oftentimes what decides an MVP for me. And I think it's like just yourself, because there's been so many of these moments, but it feels like all other parts of your game are still there. Where with some of the KC guys, unfortunately, it's just the early game going so wonky for them makes it hard to kind of go, oh yeah, this is why I believe they're an MVP, because it kind of feels like the team as a whole is struggling.
And of course, there's still another weekend of play for them. So there's still an opportunity for them to turn things around. So this is just initial conversations for anyone that is listening. But the only thing I wanted to do before we moved on is because we talked all pro for AD carry, but we did skip over support, Miky.
True.
So upsets. This is your opportunity. If you could rate your top 3 supports based on the league's performance, who would you rate?
I mean, of course, Miky number 1. I think probably Alvaro number 2.
Yep, I would agree with that.
And then I would put Jun number 3.
Wow, Jun number 3.
Yeah, I think his team is obviously not doing that good, but the amount of times I see him like just CCing 5 people at the same time. And then his Nexus still explodes. It's not what's supposed to happen.
I mean, his Nico
so,
engages have been insane, and then it's so sad that just nothing happens afterwards.
So I think Labrov had a weak split so far, especially in comparison to this guy. But I think he's also like a pretty decent player, right? But G2 just lost too many games in like not very inspiring ways for me to give it. Even though Jun also lost a lot of games, if I see him losing a game, he probably still did like something pretty good where his team should have won the game. So I like Jun. I don't know if we're forgetting anyone.
I don't.
There's Targa.
Targa.
Targa, Niski, Stand.
I mean, Targa still has very good team fights, I think, but the laning phase just wasn't quite there. Like I think you can't be losing like lane to Heretics.
So you rate Jun's laning phase quite highly?
Yeah, Jun is pretty good in lane.
Yeah.
I mean, they're like our 2v2 partners.
Yeah.
Kind of like we like to play with them because they're pretty nice. And
I would personally also put Yoon number 2. I think.
Okay.
Number 2.
Number 2, yeah.
Damn.
Because I kind of feel bad like watching him get so many good engages and just losing after. Like it must be so sad.
I mean, Stan could be maybe in contention for 3rd.
No.
No.
But
It's funny because we had
I'll put Alvaro 3rd.
True. Alvaro's
we
very
had
good.
Karzi and Naknaka on, and they put Stend as last. But I think it was actually just coming off the back of, playing against them. So is there like something that you think people don't see about Stend?
No, I mean, I think he had a lot of clutch engages in like, it's kind of the Shio thing where like the team on paper seems a bit weaker. Yeah. But he pulled out some clutch games for them to win some games against obviously not the toughest opposition. So that's just why I brought the name up for the conversation. I also wouldn't put him in my top 3, but just I saw his name. Yeah,
fair. Cool. That was really nice insight. Yeah. It's a lot pleasant to hear about Jun as well, especially given. I mean, they still have a shot of qualifying. I think they have 1 game left next week. If my schedule is correct, then
they play Heretics.
Yeah, and that's a very, very important series for them. So we'll see if they can keep their playoff hopes alive. But thank you so much, gentlemen, for your insight on things like MVP and All Pro. The community, though, did have some questions. So we're going to move into some of these Twitter questions. And so from Nico Golner, I'm paraphrasing here, but we heard Miky saying Winter Split, one of the biggest problems of Fnatic were problems with comms during some situations. Is this something that's more controllable now?
Should I lawyer it?
Yeah, you take this one. No comment from me.
Okay, so Miky is very sensitive young man.
Yeah.
And me and Ivan at times were like talking about stuff that already happened in game and like kind of getting into discussions to improve for the next game. But we were still in the same game. So he really doesn't like reviewing in game. And I think we have stopped doing that. What do you think? Less?
There was a situation.
I have stopped doing it.
BDS game 1.
Okay.
When he was going for the Viplay, when Gragas TP'd on top. Game 2.
Yeah.
And then we were like, oh, he was dead, no? And then I was like, I mean, we could also get aced as 4, like, or whatever, but like we could lose the game here.
Maybe I did say that. I mean, like not going for a play and then saying this play would have for sure worked. It's like, okay, then just do it, right? But don't say it would have worked, but you didn't do it, because then I'm gonna say, well, maybe it wouldn't have worked. But it was also last time against BDS, so BDS just brings out the worst in us. Because last time it was like, whatever.
Okay, so Nico touched a nerve there, but all right.
In progress.
Nico,
I think it has been better now.
It's been better.
Yeah, it's
all right.
We had to talk about it last bit, so.
All right, so this one's directed towards Upset from @ShadowSlightly6759. Mikyx is the EU support goat, but it's also a dirty inter.
Fact.
So I want to know Upset's experience with both sides of the Mikyx coin.
I mean, I remember I'm gonna go back in the past.
Yeah, please do.
So I was in Origin. It all started there.
Yeah.
I mean, it actually started even earlier, but whatever. So basically, I was playing with Destiny and then Jack Troll, and I was often playing against Hilly, and like I was seeing his impact in the game and the pressure he was putting, and I was like, holy, this guy is like completely insane. And I was thinking the same about Miky, but like I said, this is a longer story. So then when I joined Fnatic 2021, I told myself, like, I don't care if this guy is gonna like go 0-10 in a scrim and just completely run it down and like be the worst player ever in one game. Because I know that once we get on stage, like he's gonna have the pants on, right? Like it's gonna be
it's his game.
Whatever that means. Like
we get it.
The pants are on, and he's just gonna be like a beast, right? Because when you play against someone and it's like you're kind of like sweating a bit, right? Like your back is a bit wet. It's like cold, uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like once you have him in your team, you better not be like complaining when he like runs it down in scrims or like in not so important matches, or even in important matches, because that's kind of also the part of the role. So that's what I try to always think with Hilly. I think at some point I was maybe like stopped thinking like that a little bit, which is not good, because you need to always be grateful, I think, for the strength. And a lot of people, I think, when they play longer with someone, they look at like what they at their mistakes instead of actually all the other things they bring. But I was always Hilly's lawyer and his supporter, so I reminded myself of that too. And with Miky too, like I know he's a beast, right? Obviously, and always when I play against him, I knew he was really, really good. So I try to not tilt when he ints, because he does int. Like mainly face check is his weakness. Like he just is very confident, just like Hilly. But I feel like playing with Hilly also prepared me for this moment. So
shout out to Hilly.
But Miky actually ints a little bit less. So like not
You're about
surprisingly.
to say surprisingly there, yeah.
Not surprisingly.
And I think Hilly is more hot-headed a little bit. Like I love the guy, but our discussions were much more heated. But with Miky, we nearly never really argue, I think, at least not about bot lane. Whatever that also means. So I don't know. It's been very easy.
Great. Yeah. Okay. I'm sure Shadow Slightly will be happy to hear about that. Quick question for Miky comes from Orpheus Kotsu. When can we expect to see fiddle support?
I guess when there's a good spot for fiddle support.
Okay.
Yeah.
Straight to the point. Now, originally, Hysterics asked this question, which I don't know if you have any context on it, but after hearing them talk, I understand a little bit
It's
more.
from the desk in Madrid. But it's in Paris West next week, yeah.
But
yeah.
Hysterics...
When you twos were on the desk. Yeah.
Hysterics was asking, what are Mikyx's rates for lawyering? Do you have a rate?
That didn't make any sense to me, because I'm the lawyer.
I was going to say,
It should be my
I did
rates.
read the question and I was like, I thought I misremembered, but I was like, I was pretty sure it was Upset who was the lawyer.
Yeah.
So how much are you paying Upset?
He pays me in 2v2 kills.
I'm predicting.
one per series.
not
Do
on the
you
spot.
keep track of how many you're on right now?
Oof. I mean, me and Hilly were on a pretty good streak back then. Like we were actually counting them. We were like on a 7-game streak. But it was like Samira, Kaiser, like Alistar, Rel. Like we were flashing level 1 every game, and it was worked. We have a lot of 2v2 kills now. Today, was there one?
Today we killed them
we
with
did,
Poppy. Game 2.
I mean, we couldn't really kill them because he just started roaming on Zeri.
He kind of left lane level 3. Yeah.
But was a bit uncomfy, maybe.
Yeah, but in your game 1, weren't you literally just, you were involved in every single kill except for the one solo kill that Humanoid got on a side lane?
Surprisingly. Yeah, but I was well fed, right? So it was kind of easy.
Fair enough. Last question. Bruna. If you hadn't become pro players, what profession do you imagine yourself in and why?
Lawyer. No, I'm joking. You go first, Miky.
I have no idea. I never really thought about it. I was kind of just like, pro player looks fun. So then, I kind of started trying to become a pro player. Actually, it was because I watched Chushe, and he won playing AP Alistar and AP Gragas, and he was actually a big inspiration why I wanted to become a pro player.
That's awesome.
So yeah,
shout out to Chushe.
Yeah.
So what about you?
I mean, I really wanted to become a pro very early on, so it's very hard to say because the formative years of like when you're in high school and you like start to think like what university I'm gonna go to, like what do I want to study. At that time, I was just studying the laning phase, the sword or the mouse, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Things that interested me, probably psychology.
I have a degree in psychology. Yeah. Useless degree.
Not if you're a psychologist. No?
No, but the thing about psychology degree is like, I remember going to university. So my dorm was filled with like, I was roommates with a lawyer, a medic, and an accountant. And so all of their degrees served a purpose, as in like they were training to be a thing, whereas my degree just introduced me to all the different fields of psychology. And then once you complete the degree, they're like, right, now you have to pick one and specialize for another 3 years, which is why it was fundamentally a useless degree, because all I did during my university degree was play a shit ton of League of Legends.
I think that might have been the problem.
Yeah.
A doctor also needs to specialize for law, no?
Fun fact, I got a 59.8 was my final score, which rounded up into 60, which gave me a 2-1 classification, which really pissed off so many of my other, because I did the bare minimum for what was a good degree classification.
Below 60 is fail?
No. So they have first degree classifications, 2-1, 2-2, and then thirds. So I got a 60, but I always realized that the 60 to 69, it's all the same.
Yeah.
So whether you get a 60 or a 69 doesn't really do anything for you. So I was like, I'll just do the bare minimum and I'll just get a 60 at the risk rather than failing to get a first. And so unfortunately, that kind of has just do the bare minimum. So now I'm a caster.
Yeah, I'll probably do the same if I couldn't be a pro player. I'll probably be a caster.
All right. Well, thank you so much for answering all those Twitter questions. The thing to round out the podcast is looking ahead at next week's schedule. Of course, you guys have concluded your splits. You guys get a bit of a chill week, but we are going on another road trip to Paris, where we will get to see G2, SK, KC, and Vitality playing up against one another. So naturally, we have to ask, what are your guesses? What are your estimations? What are you thinking for next weekend?
Probably SK 2-0. No, I don't know. Like, I think probably G2 wins against SK. Then KC probably goes 2-0. And then Vitality wins against SK.
All I'm going to say is no one thought that Giants was going to pop off the way that they did in Madrid.
I did. I guess.
But do you guys think the crowd maybe like, I feel like there had to have been some sort of crowd buff for like everyone playing that weekend. Because this weekend we had 2-0s every game.
For a German team especially, right?
Okay, I see what you did there, yeah.
But like, what are your thoughts on Giant X Narratives?
Giant X. I mean, their jungle always pings me when I'm in solo queue because he didn't know it was me. So shout out to Isma. Look at me now. In first place.
We made it.
Their top laner did in fact call me brainless today and low IQ.
Oh my god.
Didn't appreciate that one lot, but it's fine. Now you know it was me.
Your support got reported today, right?
I just had to remake a game. It was out of my control.
Legit. But it was surprising. I mean, like we said, we are supporting June because he's been playing pretty well. I think Jackie's has a lot of potential as well. I think Noah's also doing fine. So I think that was the biggest difference in Madrid, actually, their top jungle stepping up. But I have to say, after G2's win yesterday over Vitality, the weekend looks less hype for me personally. Because if Vid showed up yesterday and they actually made it against G2, and they looked really strong in the early game, and that they can pull it off and beat a good team. This weekend would have looked really good, but for me now, I mean, still going to be high up because it's an arena, of course, but I feel like the favorites are so clear. Like, I think G2, of course, will play better than SK. Like, no one would lose to SK.
Maybe on stage.
True, stage, but KC, Vid, like after what Vid showed us yesterday, there's no reason to think that they're going to beat KC, I would say.
Fair.
Because KC are very good at catching throws, and Vid didn't even wear a glove yesterday to throw anything. They didn't find the ball. I don't even know.
The metaphors today.
Yeah. I'm like a poet. Vitality, SK, I mean, might be similar, but Vid, clear favorite. KCG2. I think now after yesterday, and if they have a good showing against SK, that will be the most interesting match to see on the weekend. Because if G2's in form, maybe some good drafts. Could see them doing well. And then Monday, Heretics Giants, also very interesting match, I think, because it's very, very important for both, right?
Big, yeah.
Because Giants can squeak up to 4, and that might put Heretics in a lot of trouble.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Especially like G2. So G2 are sitting at 4, Heretics are sitting at 4. So depending on how the weekend goes, it could end up putting them into a bunch of tiebreakers then to figure out what the hell's going on there. So,
So, the only thing that could affect your first place spot is, of course, if KC 2-0 the weekend. So you low-key rooting for G2 to beat them?
I mean,
I guess,
he's capping.
I mean, depends what actually getting first gets us.
Yeah.
Well, in theory, it would be an easier opponent.
In theory, I guess.
I mean, I think we're playing like KC and us are locked top 2.
Yeah.
So ideally
KC
then,
7 wins too?
No, so they're at 6-1, but they...
Okay, so...
Ideally, SK
Oh,
beats
actually,
G2
I guess there's a world where
G2 wins
Koi
against SK.
could catch up to them and then stuff happens. But if they're both tied at 6, doesn't KC have the head-to-head?
I mean, games go
well,
first,
the head-to-head
then
doesn't
head-to-head.
matter,
Yeah, but in theory, both... If KC lost both of their series, then they would be tied at 6 with... Assuming Koi wins...
Tied at 6?
6 wins.
Sorry, 6
6
wins.
okay.
My apologies.
No.
Yeah, so basically, like, your first place, though, isn't in your control anymore. It's basically up to KC, because if they win both games, then they will get 8-1. But if they get 7 wins, then there's obviously the head-to-head against you guys, which I believe you have.
I mean, it doesn't matter too much, I think. Our goal is to win the league, right? So we need to beat everyone.
Fair enough.
I think it's going to probably be G2 or Matt, our first round matchup. I don't even know who I would pick as of right now. Maybe after a week more of games, we would know more about it. I think both are decent teams. If the top 4 shapes up that like a Heretics gets to 6 wins and the G2 doesn't, obviously then being first is like pretty nice, because having Heretics in your first round compared to a stronger team would probably make it a bit easier.
Fair enough.
But I might have just jinxed us.
Touch wood.
Anything to round us out, Dagda? Anything else?
No, I mean, I'm just very excited to see G2 versus KC. I would have been less excited if I hadn't seen G2 yesterday, against Vitality, where they just absolutely smoked them, because it feels like maybe they're starting to come back. And even I think Broken Blade tweeted out, "We're back, baby." So, just to see if they're back.
No one ever said anything on Twitter that wasn't true.
Exactly. And I think that's the focal point. But, yeah, I was just excited to see if they actually are, or what the hell happens with... I mean, if they lose to SK before they get to KC, that's going to be really upsetting. But
super interesting weekend.
I really want to see it. Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us today. Congratulations on completing the split. Best of luck when it comes to playoffs. I hope you enjoy the break.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And thank you as always, Dagda. And thank you for watching. Have a wonderful evening, morning / day, depending on where you're watching. Bye-bye.
Bye.